Hey, you ever get one of those ideas that stick with you and pesters you until you snap and have to tell everyone about it? Well, this is that idea. Because the truth is, we don't know if Vigilantes has an expiration date. Even just putting this theory out there, for all I know, the next chapter comes out and they announce that there's only 3 chapters left in Vigilantes. Because to be quite honest, every time I try to estimate the time frame of when Vigilantes might end, I'm usually wrong. So I figure this time go against my better instincts and think about it from the opposite side of the spectrum. What if Vigilantes doesn't end? So remember, before we get started, there will be spoilers ahead, so if you're not caught up on My Hero Academia and My Hero Academia Vigilantes, be sure to read up on both titles and then come on back. But now it's time to step inside the bar and ponder the question, what if? I'm sorry, I'll never do that again. Welcome to the bar, folks. Okay, so pretty much the way that this idea came about is I was hanging out with the glowing donut at his shop the other day, and we were just kind of spitballing back and forth ideas for how Vigilantes could possibly end. We talked about whether or not Popstep and Koichi will actually reunite with one another, talked about whether or not Koichi would actually retire after this arc was even over, and that's when we got into the conversation of him talking to Knuckle Duster and finding out that he actually had his quirk stolen and that the guy he's been fighting against the entire time, well, that's the guy who has his quirk. Because before this war arc even broke out, Koichi was content with retirement. He was like, yeah, once my last All Might sweater is worn out, I'm done. There's no point in me really kind of continuing doing this. He's protected Naruhata for like 4.5 years. The thing is, he kind of put his skin in the game as a vigilante, which means that he kind of put himself out there to never pull himself out of the game. And it's a weird comparison, but being a superhero is a lot like being an assassin. Usually there's stories about assassins that come out of retirement, you know, like John Wick or Bob Odenkirk and Nobody, but then you have those superheroes that always come out of retirement, like Batman in The Dark Knight Returns or Wolverine in Old Man Logan. Either way, usually something from their past rears their head and forces them back into action. We're seeing that moment essentially happen right now for Knuckle Duster. So with that being said, there's an inevitable confrontation looming between Knuckle Duster and Koichi, where Koichi is really going to ask his mentor what he got him into. Because whether Koichi wants to be involved or not, after the defeat of number 6, he's on All For One's radar, meaning eventually All For One is going to come for him as well. Koichi's quirk is way too good not to steal, and I can totally picture the moment where Koichi is like, no, I'm done with all of this, I'm done, I don't have any more sweaters, and then Popstep pulls out the sweater that she has hidden away. Even if it doesn't act as the catalyst for him to continue being the crawler in the sense to go hunt down All For One, I still think that that sweater could become the catalyst for him just to stay the crawler, period. But I do think that after learning about Knuckle Duster's story, Popstep and Koichi are going to continue the fight and try to bring All For One to justice. Because if they don't work to take him down, well, it's kind of only a matter of time before that dude shows up, kills you, and takes your quirk, or takes your quirk and then kills you. Whatever has to happen first. Because to be quite honest, if Vigilantes ends, the opportunity that Horikoshi has to expand his world, it shrinks dramatically. Because Horikoshi has taken advantage of what Vigilantes could do for the universe of My Hero Academia. Through Vigilantes alone, he's been able to expand on the plot lines of heteromorph disparity, the lack of heroes in non-gentrified areas, and on top of that, they've taken time to clearly establish the difference between heroes and police. So if Vigilantes ends, Horikoshi loses his vehicle of storytelling behind the scenes. There's just so much world building going on that would be sacrificed if Vigilantes actually ended. Now, if Vigilantes doesn't end, eventually it's going to catch up to My Hero Academia. Vigilantes just came off of a 4.5-year time skip. So if I had to guess where we were in the timeline once again, because this is just really hard to guess, I would say that we're within like 6 months of My Hero Academia actually starting now. So what I would expect is the series to jump ahead another 1.5 years to jump to current events. I can already picture the scene happening where you have Popstep and Koichi sitting there and they're talking about how everything going on in Japan right now is really reminiscent of the Nightmare Night in Naruhata, and that's when Knuckle Duster bursts through the door and says, "Koichi, we gotta go." Even if the story breaks away and doesn't follow Koichi, because we've seen it break away and not follow Koichi for a bit. With the Aizawa arc, it was comfortable with breaking away for almost 2 volumes and not seeing Koichi for a little bit, so I am totally fine with Koichi disappearing from Vigilantes for a little bit, because even if he does disappear for a little bit, he will return as the main character to the story. That's just the nature of the beast at that point. But for the past couple of months in My Hero Academia, they've mentioned that vigilantism is on the rise, and not only that, we've gotten highlights on some of these civilians that have gone out of their way to become vigilantes just to protect their towns. And quick sidebar real quick, because the fact of the matter is, they've talked about vigilantes roaming through the towns in My Hero Academia pretty frequently. I mean, for like the past 3 months, they've really been talking about vigilantism being on the rise, and the fact that we haven't seen Popstep, Koichi, or Knuckle Duster appear at all, it just feels like a wasted opportunity not to have them be in this arc. By including the vigilantes into your grand scheme of the story, your story doesn't just become a story with 330 chapters, it becomes one with 441 chapters. And in retrospect, when you think about a series that has 441 chapters, that's a lot of world building that you've gotten done. And the fact that Horikoshi just supervises the script, it means that he gives Betancourt and Furuhashi the reins to do whatever they want. Because I remember reading a short interview with Betancourt and Furuhashi when they were like, yeah, we tried to see if we could get Endeavor, and then they said we could use Endeavor, and that just kind of makes me think that they just go to Horikoshi and go, hey, can we use this character? And Horikoshi just looks at them and goes, why do you want to use that character? Why don't you just use that one? And then they're just like, well, we would love to use that one, but we didn't think you'd give it to us. And Horikoshi's like, of course I would let you use that character. Please, go ahead, use him. And then the next thing you know, we have an entire arc that tells us that Stain was actually a vigilante before he was Stain. So to the average viewer, they wouldn't put one and one together. They would just kind of be like, wow, this whole world is big and encompassing, but Horikoshi thinks about everything, thinks about all of his details meticulously. Because essentially what Horikoshi's doing is what Western Comics does. Because in Western Comics, you got your main title, and then you have side titles that run either parallel to the current canon that's being established with the main title, or that main title just has another book that's just giving you one-shot stories. Like once upon a time, you would read Detective Comics to see Batman's more investigative approach towards a mystery. You wouldn't see him get into as many fights. You would see him kind of, put his nose to the ground and figure out what's going on in the mystery. While on the flip side, you'll have the title comic Batman, which executes on the ideas that were built inside of Detective Comics. So if Horikoshi doesn't have the time to explain how someone got a power-up, he could use that time in Vigilantes to actually tell his story, but in the same time, he can go to My Hero Academia and utilize a flashback. Because like Western Comics, My Hero Academia really has no problem using callbacks to make people refer to prior issues so they can re-educate themselves with a current situation. So from that point of view, you don't have to take time away from Deku, and you would be able to give a character that you wouldn't normally be able to give page time to, the adequate amount of page time to show that they had character growth. So I know that this idea is more of a 50-50 chance. For all I know, Vigilantes does end next week. Honestly, that would be my luck at this point, but the fact of the matter is, Horikoshi has so much of a story to tell using 2 titles instead of 1 that I don't see the reason behind ending Vigilantes anytime soon. Yes, every single one of us wants to see that dramatic conclusion between number 6 and Koichi, and absolutely none of us want Knuckle Duster to die because he still has a lot to answer for. Because in my opinion, he's doing something extremely selfish by trying to blow up number 6 and himself once again. He should know by now that once this incident is over and number 6 is dealt with, All For One is gonna come back and he's gonna try to find the person that dealt with his experiment. And the person that kind of dealt with his experiment is him, but mostly he's gonna go after the Naruhata vigilante. So despite the battle with number 6 reaching its dramatic conclusion, I don't think that this is gonna be it for the Crawler. If anything, he's more deep in it now than he was before. He actually took out a minion of All For One, a pretty strong one to boot. And as of right now, All For One is in hiding, so we don't really expect him to show up anytime soon. But flash forward that year and a half, and once again, he's pretty much close to controlling all of Japan once again. Meaning, he's gonna go out collecting quirks that he likes, which in my opinion would probably put Koichi at the tippy top. So if we get another time skip, and then all of a sudden All For One shows up and Knuckle Duster kicks in that door and tells Koichi we gotta go, you could 100% have the moment where Koichi says no, he's done being the Crawler, and then Popstep goes into her closet and pulls out Koichi's sweater crawler and goes, well, I think Japan and the world needs the crawler once again. It could be the perfect segue to bringing Vigilantes into the current era of My Hero Academia, and I think Vigilantes has the perfect opportunity to run coinciding with My Hero Academia. Like I said, Horikoshi could absolutely take the title and use it to expand more upon his series. And if you ask me, I would be totally fine with Koichi continuing to be the crawler and being the vigilante that we all need. As of the most recent arc, he's got skin in the game now. He's got to see this through to the end. He has to see All For One get the justice that he deserves. And I like to think that All For One has created a pretty deep feud. So if you agree with me and you too think that Vigilantes has the opportunity to not end, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And if you think that Vigilantes is going to end, let me know your ideal ending down below as well. And until next time, I'll catch y'all later. Cheers.